going, baby? How you living? How you living?
I really like to take this challenge for myself, aside of just being a musician.
She had a swishy jacket and some thing in her head.
Even it's really big for you.
Yeah, it's like the size of me.
Don't worry, I won't say anything stupid. I hope. It's just like a crazy metal band, like shooting everything up.
My advice is forget the movies and look for a good job. No.
My daughter is going to sleep, so I need to say goodnight to her.
I don't want terrible things to always be happening to me and my children.
I think I was more nervous when the movie was premiering and coming out, because then I realized that people actually had to see it.
Nice to escape the studio. We have the beautiful, sunny, not sunny English countryside behind us.
This country and this world can do a whole lot better.
Wow, what a presentation.
Right, like I want people to know that you didn't just show up now.
That's where the idea of the pancake came from.
But you're the only person ever who has ever asked me that question, ever.
Oh, wow.
I started listening and thinking like, hey, I could start doing just drum tracks from home and build out the studio and stuff like that. So that's where it started from. Like, what could I do at home and still do my business, still be with my family, but not have to travel or go to band practice or that type of stuff, and just do it at home as I had time.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm Mark Sugiyama from Eclectic Arts, based here in Seattle, Washington, and happy hump day to everybody. Thank you so much for joining me on this Wednesday, the 25th of August, 2021. We're almost through August and getting close to September, which is really crazy. As always, a little bit of housekeeping. This Friday, the new Fun Table sessions are coming back finally. This will be round 3. I started doing these again in June, and I've really enjoyed having the guests back. And the format hasn't really changed. It's just that the length of time is a little bit more condensed, and that we're not looking at just Friday or Saturday evenings to do these because of the world basically being opened up. Schedules have gotten really, really difficult, including my own. So trying to just kind of make it accommodating to whatever time. So it's going to be at 10:30 a.m. Pacific on Friday, which is 1:30 Eastern for all you folks over there. And I have a wonderful musician, an actor, and a director, screenwriter joining me. And again, that's going to be on Friday. And if you want to know more about what's coming up, you can follow me at Eclectic Arts Media, one word, on Instagram. That's where I post everything first. And then I migrate some of that information over to other social media platforms. If this is your first time seeing anything on my YouTube channel, if you could hit the subscribe button, I greatly appreciate that. And if you want to know what's coming up, you can hit the little notification bell, but please be aware that we'll send emails to your inbox. So, but the subscription button definitely helps me. As people know, back in, I think it was early July, I hit that magical 1,000 number, and now I'm getting closer to just continually to add to that. So I really appreciate everyone. I'm very, very grateful for anyone that's tuned in and watched any of the live streams that I've done. I was just talking to my guest pre-show that this is live stream number 135 for 2021, and overall it's live stream number 240. So those numbers are kind of nutty to me, as people know, I got involved with all of this virtual world. I'm trying to see where my camera is because I'm using a different device today. That I was with the wonderful band Alice from Los Angeles, and we were on a virtual tour last year. That was, we had chapter 1, we had the interim shows, we had chapter 2 and chapter 3. And so what I've done is I've reached out to some of the guests from chapter 1, which was back on May 22nd through June 15th of 2020. And want to invite them back and kind of see what's been going on the last 15, 16 months. In some cases, I kind of know, like with today's guest, he had joined some of the Fun Table sessions that I had after that, after his one-on-one interview. But just kind of know that I still have some other guests coming back from that very first leg. So it's going to be really fun to see what they've been up to and what's going on and everything else coming up. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So let's get to this. Again, this is guest number 3 that's back. We had Eva Tavares, which was guest number 1. We had Mariah Belgrado, which was guest number 2. I want to make sure that I'm not forgetting somebody because my brain these days, man, I've been forgetting all kinds of facts and things, but no, it should be guest number 3. My guest today first joined me on the Alice virtual tour, as I mentioned, last May of 2020. The actual date was the 25th of May. He is a talented musician, business owner, athlete, and family man. Please welcome back to the Eclectic Arts Virtual Studio, Mr. Mike Gruwell.
Hey,
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm in Georgia, and it's like the heat has been crazy this last couple of weeks here. You were talking about athlete or whatever. I don't know if I'm a real athlete, but I do run a lot, and so I'm running a lot earlier in the morning. I've been getting up at 7 and trying to get out before the sun is killing me out there. So, yeah.
What kind of temperatures are we talking about? Like in the 90s or hotter than that, or?
It's high 80s, but then the humidity is just crazy. So it feels like it's 100 plus or whatever, especially once you get to about 9 o'clock, 9 till about, 7. It seems like it's just, you walk out, it's like, that heat just gets you.
Oh, yikes. I mean, we didn't really have the humidity part, but you may have heard at the end of June up here that we set a record temperature ever for, it was 108 or whatever we hit. And
goodness,
I don't know how people deal with that, like in Phoenix and, other places. I mean, I understand they have AC because they're used to it, but still, it's just not made for humans.
No, not at all. So, yeah.
It's great that you're back, and I can't wait to talk to you because I know you have some things coming up, and definitely things have happened since we did our one-on-one, because that was, 15, 16 months ago, and that you had joined a few fun table sessions, which was great. But we haven't talked since, I think maybe November of last year, I think was the last time we were connected virtually.
Yeah, no, it's been a while. I mean, I know you've been busy doing your own thing, and every once in a while we'll talk back and forth on Facebook or whatever. But yeah, it's been quite a while. I mean, it was great to first connect with you back in May of 2020 when the world was just starting to shut down at that time, and where we are now, which is basically, it seems like the same boat again, almost.
Unfortunately, yes. I guess the one plus, as a lot of people have also mentioned, that if for some reason, I hope it doesn't happen, but if it starts to get even worse and more mandates and we have to roll back even more, we've been through it once, so we kind of know what to do. I mean, we're kind of prepared for it versus the first time you don't know what's going on and what to believe and how do we handle this kind of stuff. And now we say, okay, we did it once, so it's not as extreme perhaps as if we have to do it a second time, but I don't want to do it a second time.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing though, we know what we have to do, but I think you're going to have less people doing what they're supposed to do the second time around, which is another hard thing. I mean, we could go down a rabbit hole on that, but anyway.
Yeah. We'll leave that where that's at. And again, I've talked to many international guests, so it's interesting hearing from them because they'll ask me pre-show, how are things in Seattle? What's going on in the United States? And I'll tell them, and they just do this. They just shake their heads. It doesn't matter what country they're from. They don't understand the mentality of the folks that maybe are, trying to do things for the greater good, and those that aren't. And they're just kind of. And one person was actually getting really upset, not at me, but just the thought of the fact that we have to deal with this mentality here in the U.S. I was like, well, the country's been based on trying to do your own thing. I mean, we separated from another country to come over here and try, religious persecution and all these kind of things. So, and it's still there. But yeah, we won't go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah,
we'll be down there forever, and we'll never find the bottom of it either. So.
No, but it's funny, not to go too far deeper in it, but I mean, I just wrote a blog for my other business, the Shooting Star, because we get so many people. I mean, when you talk about other countries, we get gear from all these other countries, and the UK shuts down, New Zealand shuts down, and we get gear from them. I mean, this is where some of our gear is made that we sell to skydivers, but the skydivers in the US, they're I wouldn't say belligerent, or they have high expectations where they're like, what do you mean you can't get me this? What do you mean you don't have this in stock? It's like, you do know we're in a pandemic, right? And you do know that the US, there's pockets, and then there's other countries that are just still shut down, that they can't even get into their businesses. They have to stay home. But it is crazy what I know from skydivers, US skydivers expect in this pandemic. It's like they forget, or they just don't believe it's, real. Anyway.
Yeah, and like you said, not to spend too much time on it, but even to the fact that if I go to the grocery store, sometimes I have to check myself that I'm forgetting that some of these things are still not getting here the same amount of time that they used to. So I might go there and something's out of stock. And I'm like, well, what happened to my favorite chip? And it's like, well, something happened to the truck, or the facility had had a strike or had a COVID outbreak there, so they had to shut down for a week or something. And there's all these things that I kind of forget. That's like, since we've been so quote unquote reopened, I'm kind of like, well, are we kind of back? And same thing with even mail delivery. My mail's getting closer to how it used to be, but it's not the same.
No, not at all. Because and I talk about it too. Is like, if we have something in stock, or if we can get you something, we'll do everything we can do. And then once we ship it out, that's another thing. Like you said, UPS, USPS, FedEx, DHL, they're all overwhelmed. And so it's like, we'll ship it to you. And then it's like, it's a crapshoot. Are you going to get it or not? I don't know. I mean, it's going to be late probably. And then you might not get it, and we might have to reship it later. And they're like, why isn't my package here? It's supposed to be here 2 days ago. It's like, look, you're lucky we had it. We shipped it. It's going to get to you, or it's not. We'll fix it later. But, it's just the way the world is right this second.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've checked in with a couple people, especially if they said they were going to send me something directly from an international country. And I always tell them, I'm not in any rush for it. I just want to make sure that it actually got sent, so I can kind of figure out, like, okay, typically what takes, say, 3 weeks from this country, it's probably going to take maybe 6 weeks now.
Absolutely.
And, and where I live, there's porch pirates and all this kind of stuff too. So that's why I kind of want to know, like, if they're on the lookout for it, so I can grab the thing before somebody else does. And I even like right now, somebody was telling me that, Mark, did you get your CD yet? And it's coming from Canada. I said, no, actually, it's been like a month, and I haven't even received a notice that it shipped. And they're like, what? And then they found out that things were stuck at the border. So there's like boxes of stuff sitting there, and it can't get down here to the U.S. yet. It's like, well, like I told them, I'm not in any rush. Things are going to happen, and we just have to be flexible. But I can only imagine for you as a CEO of a company, the kind of things that your customer service department has to deal with. From people that are like, where's my stuff? I want it yesterday. I have something I have to do with it. And like, what do you want us to do?
Oh,
if we could get it there on time, we would. But it's like you said, you're lucky. You're lucky we even have it in stock. So just exercise some patience, please.
Absolutely. So,
but that's kind of a good thing to talk about with. Most folks, if you haven't had a chance to see Mike's one-on-one, it's still on my YouTube channel. It'll always be there until YouTube disappears or something. So you can always go back and rewatch things. I have a playlist for all the interviews I did from Chapter 1 of the Alice Tour, so you can just go through those, and you can find Mike's and also the Fun Table sessions that he's been a part of. But one thing I wanted to talk about that seemed like it was fairly new was that you have an album that's going to be coming out in the fall. And so what can you tell me about this album and this recording? What's going to be on it, and what was this whole process like?
It's been awesome. It wasn't something, when we talked in May, I wasn't planning on this. So I was at that point, I think I was trying to think back this morning. I think I was just finishing out the studio that I'm in now. I was in here, but it wasn't finished out. I was, it was unfinished basement. And when I first finished this, it was more to give my family peace and quiet so I could practice, but also I had a couple guys that wanted me to do some drum tracking for them. And so I was starting to get into that, and needed to be able to do that at any time, but also get great sounds. So being able to not only soundproof the room, but do the sound treatment in the way I wanted. But that was my original, back in May, I was mostly just working on tracking for others. I was starting to offer lessons again, although with the pandemic, that didn't work out so well. Although lessons have started up again, but then have, kind of gone off again just with Delta or whatever. But anyway, long story short, as I was starting to track more, I started talking with this guy named Mclean. He's a drummer that is on Broadway with The Lion King, and he's been releasing his own drum albums for a while, the last few years. And something just struck me as man, I've been doing all these recordings, and I'm starting to, mess around the studio a lot. And I think I have 7 or 8 songs. And so I went back and listened to all my recordings. I picked out the ones that I liked. And then I started recording some more stuff because I've been, when you're stuck during the pandemic, I got the piano, I got the bass, I got the trumpet. I started just, writing my own riffs and stuff like that. So it really came out of the pandemic and being here, having, you know, no one to really jam with, but starting to write my own music, and also be inspired by seeing someone else putting out their own music, just, you know, drum albums. And it started to get me, you know, always thinking, you know, I was trying to get back together with some musicians and make a band and stuff like that. And with the pandemic, it was just weird. But I started, you know, reframed my mind of what a song was, what an album could be. I mean, does it have to have verse, chorus, and bridge and all that stuff? Does it have to have a singer? Does it have to all of this? And sort of, I reframed my mind by getting deeper into some instrumental albums. Like I went back to the old Critters Buggin', started listening to the Meters some more and stuff like that. And I started redefining, like, you know what? I've got music. I've been doing this. I want to get it out there. So that's kind of where it was born from.
Isn't it interesting how many different things have happened for people during the pandemic time, where it started as one thing, just maybe something to do, and then it blossomed into all these other kind of things. And you're right. I do remember you're redoing your drum room and basically doing it all from scratch. Basically, I remember you're posting all kinds of updates on it, and then here you were just doing that to say, I kind of give your family some peace of mind from you bashing around on the drum kit, and you had no idea or even inkling of like, yeah, I'm going to put an album out in the fall, and then here you are getting ready to do it. So as you said, it's unique that someone's has put out records that are drum albums. How has this process been in terms of doing this? I'm assuming as an independent artist. I mean, is it easy to find places that manufacture what you're going to do and get everything made up, or has it been kind of a slow going process?
Total slow going, learn as you go. I mean, it really got me thinking of like, what was I thinking back in the, or what were my bands thinking back in the 90s when we were putting out cassette tapes? It's been kind of a, double-edged sword. Part of it has been like such a learning process, but then also it's been like, man, I could have been doing this years ago. But it's definitely slow going. One of the things was originally I was going to mix and master it myself. Like I was really starting to feel like I was getting good at that. But the deeper I got into it, the more I was like, I really want this first. If I'm going to put it out there, I just want it to be mixed right. And I started doubting myself on my mixing and mastering skills. And I reached out to a couple people. So that process took a while. I ended up seeking out Jack and Dino, who did a bunch of stuff for us when I was on DFL. Of course, he's well known in the Seattle area now for doing, Nirvana, Soundgarden, all that stuff, all in between, and Dino's Earthworm and Skin Yard and all that stuff. But it took me a while to track him down. So I had this idea is like, I really felt like my music was in that kind of that time period of my life, just brought up to now. And I felt like he could relate most to it. So it took me a while to find him. He's not the easiest guy to find or get a hold of, especially remotely. But I had to like go through a certain page. He has this site that's like, it's all about the stuff, and it's all him rambling and ranting about the life and music and all that type of stuff. And then there's like a couple sentences like, if you want to get in touch with me, he gives you this list of how to do it. And, you have to go to Bandcamp, and then on a certain page, there's a place that you hit a contact, and that will send a note. And if he feels like it, he'll message you back. In fact, I talked to a couple people that had talked to Jack in the last few years, and they gave me some, phone number, email address, but none of it worked. So I did his Bandcamp thing, and he finally reached out and was like, oh yeah, DFL, Caffeine Addict. I remember that. And so we hit it off, and that was great. So that process took a while, but he mixed and mastered everything for me. And then I was like, I want to put it on vinyl. I just, I'd love to. It's not something I never did before. It was all cassette tapes, or we did some CDs and stuff like that. And so then I started looking around for vinyl places, and that's something with the industry right now. I think it's just the time is like, everyone I went to is like 6 months, maybe a year. You give us all the stuff, put down a down payment, we might be able to get to you by 2022. I'm like, OMG. So that's been a process, but that's all there. I found a local vinyl pressing plant in Athens, Georgia, and they're trying to get it out the same time I'm going to release it in November. So they're kind of trying to work with me, but they're like, no guarantees. It's just everything, just like everything else, to turn around and getting stampers made and getting the whole process. And then the artwork. I had a guy that did a lot of artwork for me on the Shooting Star side. And when I gave him all the particulars for the album, he's like, what they require for album artwork is just way beyond just what he did for magazine advertising and anything else. So then I had to seek out another guy to do all the album artwork. So that finally got done. So yeah, it's been a process, but I've loved it. I'm really happy with it's 11 songs. It's mostly instrumental. It's all got drums. It's just got some bass and piano. It's kind of a family album in that my son plays sax on a song. I got another son that's playing bass on one song, and he also gave me the riff for another song. And then on one song, I'm singing on 2 songs, which is out of my comfort zone. And the lyrics for one of those is actually a poem Stephanie, my wife, wrote for me when we got married. And so I was able to sing that to a song. So there's a lot of like goodness that's coming out of this, a lot of stuff out of my comfort zone. And I'm just excited to get it out there and kind of see what the next thing's going to be.
Well, that's cool that it's that you've shared how that process is for someone independently, that there's some things that you really like about it and then things that you've learned, but also the reality of it too. There's been a lot of people that have been talking to me about vinyl. It's like they got the digital stuff out, obviously, and then the CDs pressed, but then vinyl took a while. And then the fans are wondering, how come it's taking so long? I thought you said it was going to come out the same day. And it's like, well, there's been a delay at the plant. There's been a delay in shipping. There's a delay in everything. Mm-hmm. And it's just a long process. And you're right. It's becoming also so popular that people are just lining up now to try to find vinyl pressing plants that will put out their product. And it takes a while, because I know there was one guest, I think she had everything out in February, and then the album just came out like 2 weeks ago. And she thought it was going to be ready in February, and it was like, yeah, here we are in August, and it finally came out. So it's like, again, exercising some patience. But it's cool that it doesn't surprise me that you like that process, because I think, as we've talked before, how Shooting Star got started, how you started with Mike's drum tracking and everything else. It seems like you're really like a student that likes to learn. Somebody likes to kind of get in there and understand things. And I think you were even talking about that when you're filming your drum videos, that you're like, oh, I need to figure out how to do this better, or like when you're editing things together, so I'm not happy with this, or how I fix this. And that always takes you far in life, because then you're never going to be satisfied with what you do, and you also be willing to learn. Some people don't want to learn anything. And as we talked about before we went live, I've learned a lot about how to do this stuff now, and even like having a background and getting things the right way. And don't have the camera down here, Mark, because then I look super huge. Have it up here so it's a better angle. And being a photographer, you would think I would understand angles. But it's been really, really tough watching some of my old interviews, not because of the interview themselves, but just what I was doing in terms of talk, and also in terms of just the technical parts of things. Nutty. Is there a title for the album?
Yeah, it's called That G-Town Sound. So I've labeled this G-Town Studio, and I just felt like it all had a sound. It's got its own sound. So it's called That G-Town Sound. It's just coming under my name, Mike Gruwell. You're talking about figuring stuff out and how you had to figure stuff out. I mean, that was a big thing. And even Jack, I sent him all my stuff, and the early stuff, he was like, whoa, what were you doing here? He's like, how did you record this? And he was like, okay, I can fix this. Whereas the newer stuff, he's like, okay, I can tell where you started to figure out, how miking was working and stuff like that. So I got some great feedback, and I've actually already started. I've got 3 songs I'm working on for a follow-up album. I'm kind of going down that route right now, is like maybe doing another one over the next few months. But yeah, I mean, the other day, I do love figuring stuff out. That's funny you noticed that. I mean, it's like I sat all day with the double bass back there, and I played all day. I recorded all day. I thought I had it. I had all these takes, and then I listened back to it, and there's something with the way I set the mic up, and you get this, and I mean, the whole thing was ruined, but I figured out what I did. So then I have to just go back. But it's that learning process and being able to accept adversity or to not feel like, oh, screw it, I'm not going to record ever again. This is just too hard. It's like, yeah, I spent a whole day. I spent 6-7 hours trying to record this one part. I thought I had it, and then I found that I recorded it with the mic was too close or doing something weird on the gain. But it's all part of the learning process, and it doesn't happen overnight. That's for sure. I have one friend that used to tell me that like Shooting Star, which is world known in the skydiving industry, was like, man, you became a overnight success. Over 20 years. It's like, yeah, it took me 20 years to become an overnight success. Because everyone's like, oh, wow, how'd you do that? I'm like, it's just day by day.
See, and that's a really valuable lesson for people out there that want to start anything, whatever their passion is, that none of this stuff happens overnight. And it doesn't matter if you're doing, a YouTube channel like I am, if you're doing an actual bona fide company like Shooting Star, like you are. It took a lot of time, trial and error, learning from things, trying to fix things, being self-aware enough to know, like, I don't like how that sounds or how that ad looks or the product or the website or things, and we need to fix this.
Yeah.
And again, some people, you try to give them even like constructive criticism or feedback, they don't want to hear it. They think they already know what's best, and it's kind of like, no, trust me, I'm not trying to get down on you. If you just tweak this a little bit, it'll make it so much better if you do these things. That would have been like I mentioned, pre-show. Like if I had said, well, I'm not going to wear earbuds because I don't want to wear them, and then I find out, the audio keeps slapping back, and nobody wants to listen to the live streams. It would have been like, Mark, you're an idiot. Why didn't you listen to that person? Yeah. And sometimes people's egos get in the way, and it's like, no, you're trying to make it better. You want a better experience for people, or a better product, better recording. Yeah. And it's interesting too that you talked about what a rabbit hole you had to go down to get a hold of Jack, because I know this just from like trying to get a hold of some of the guests, or like, who do I have to go through, and who's the publicist, who's the manager? Yeah. Is this the proper way to do it? During the pandemic, especially in the heart of it, a lot of the guests I could contact directly because of social media. But then now you have to go through the proper process of like, well, no, you need to talk to this person. And yeah, I've already had an issue with that recently, which I won't get into. But it's kind of like, I do question myself sometimes, like how bad do I really want to talk to this person? Because of all the things I'm jumping through. And when I've had to dig deep for some of these things to try to find them. There must be a way to contact this person directly. And this takes you to here, to here, to here, to here. And then maybe you hear something, maybe you don't. Or I got to follow up a couple times, and they finally see it. But it's glad that you got connected with them and made things happen, that you didn't give up on that. And I think to me that's another valuable lesson, is that for folks out there, you got to keep trying with what you're doing. And if it didn't work the first time, or if you didn't hear from somebody the first time, try again. And within a reasonable amount of tries. Obviously, at some point you have to cut your losses and say, I'm moving on. Maybe there's somebody else that can mix and master this. Or in my case, there's somebody else I can talk to. But if you think it's just going to be like easy breezy, I want to talk to this band and it's just going to happen tomorrow, forget it. Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Absolutely. And patience. I mean, it used to be, like you said, it was more immediate, or it felt like it was more immediate before the pandemic, maybe during the pandemic for a little bit. But I find more and more that reaching out to someone that doesn't know you, but you think is going to be a good connection or whatever, it could take them weeks to respond to an email or even a text or a phone call or whatever, even if you have the right number. For whatever reason, they're either overloaded with people asking them stuff, or they've got all kinds of, it's a weird time. They've got personal things going on. And so, but I've never given up per se. I did reach out to a couple other people, and some would get back to me later, some never. And it's you just keep trying. If there's something you want or something you need, you just, keep looking, keep trying. But now I get messages from him all the time on different things. So, it just took a while to get connected. So,
and that's the nice thing, is that once the connection happens and you were able to work on this project with your album, and that it could be something that helps you out in the future too, that it's there. And I feel the same way. Once I finally make that connection and things go well, and the person says, Mark, that was so fun doing the interview, I want to talk to you about my next project or whatever, that's great. That's kind of why I do it. So all that staying after them, paid off. and then the other ones, you just kind of let them, go wherever they're going to go. And some people have absolutely legitimate reasons why they can't get back to you, and I understand that.
Yeah.
I think what bothers me is more when I'm dealing with people who will say, yeah, let's set this up. So then I send them dates and times, and then I don't hear anything back. And then I got to follow up. And it's like, so is this happening? Is this not happening? Oh, yeah. Let me kind of check my schedule. And then another week goes by. So, and after a while, I'm like, I don't hold things for people ever anymore because I've been burned too many times.
Yeah.
And then people get mad at me like, well, I thought we could do it on Friday. It's like, yeah, that was 3 weeks ago. If I had a bunch of other people scheduled.
Yeah.
But I was averaging 22 live streams a month. I can't just wait on you. Unfortunately, I wish I could. So,
yeah.
But it's all good in the end. I mean, I choose to do what I'm doing. Obviously, you chose to make this album and get it ready for release in the fall. And then it's interesting that you're already working on a second one. So it must be getting good to you.
Yeah, I feel like it's all flowing out. I just, so, and I'm enjoying it. I've thought about a couple things like where I could do after this album is out. Do I want to try and play it live? And I've already thought about, who would some local people that, I think could do some of the parts for me and how that would look and all that type of stuff. Or do I just want to put out a second one and kind of go down that route? So I'm kind of leaving that in the air right now. And I'm kind of developing both. I've kind of got my list of if I'm going to do it live, who I want to contact. If I get to the point, I might start contacting people and go, hey, would you be interested? But in the meantime, I still got all this studio. I still got all this time. I'm tracking for some other guys and stuff like that. But I have plenty of time, and this is what I love. I think when we talked before, I had been playing for about 5 years in local churches, for a few local churches, and which was great. But I've stopped that mainly because this started burning in me. I really wanted to make this album. In fact, when I went to the churches and said, hey, please don't schedule me anymore. I need this time off. In fact, I said, I'm just taking all of 2021 off. I'm focusing on my album, doing stuff, but doing stuff that I want to do. And it was just, so I've made time for this. And so I don't want to end up, burning all that time doing nothing. So anyway, it's flowing. Whenever I sit down at a bass or a piano or the drums and stuff like that, I feel like there's some new idea, and I'm getting better at like organizing all that and making sure that I'm recording and getting that down so I don't lose some of the ideas. But I am already working on a second one, and then trying to think about what I want to do once that first one's released. If I want to try and play some of that live or just keep making more albums here. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I like that you intentionally said, hey, I'm taking a break from, performing with the churches because I want to focus on this. This is something that I'm passionate about, and I want to see where this takes me and where it goes. I think it's also interesting that I could see you, based on what we just talked about for the last 30 minutes or so, potentially like doing like a video for one of the songs from the first album, because that would be something new of you trying to figure out, how do I film something?
Yeah.
And it could be something fictional, or I don't know, that incorporates all the different things that you have going on in your life, and putting that out there as a 5-minute song or whatever it happens to be as a video on YouTube. So it helps, like, hey, here's a new thing that I did to help promote the album.
Yeah.
And not farming it out to somebody else. Here's
Right.
a new project to work on and figure it out.
Yeah. No, for sure. That's a big leap, but I've done a lot of videoing, just not. Now you got my mind thinking. Thanks, Mark. Of the concept of that, I have thought about. I've got, I've filmed most of the stuff that I track or whatever. I always have a video camera going, and or most of the time, and so I capture. But it's a little bit different of like putting out a video of you just playing it, rather than like an actual like concept video for the song. But now my mind's churning. Thanks.
You're welcome. glad I could help.
Yeah. Good stuff.
I've had some folks talk to me about things, and I get a light bulb moment. I'm like, oh man, now I'm thinking about this stuff. But it's at the same time, it's kind of exciting, because I said, here's a new path to kind of explore and figure things out. And I think we're similar in that way. That we kind of welcome those things. Like let's see what's going on with this thing, and I can fold this into my bag of tricks that I do. And part of where that came into my head was that I was thinking that if you're filming some sort of concept that had aspects of what you do, I could see like maybe, I don't know, a quick clip of you like running somewhere. Just showing that with your ultra marathon work that you've done. And that's something I want to kind of segue into, is that I think for most of the time, I think even for me, I didn't find out till later during, I think, one of the streams that you even did that. And I think it was with Wade. You guys were talking about running. And that kind of stuff. And you're talking about I do ultra marathons. And I'm like, I had to look that up, it's like 100 miles roughly when you do those.
So they consider ultra anything over a marathon. So anything over 28.2 anything over that. So I have yet to do a full 100. I've done 100 Ks, which are 62 miles. And I've done a bunch of 50 Ks, which are whatever, 31. So yeah, man, it was one of those things where I went, just jumped in. I mean, I remember I tried to do track in like grade school, and I sucked at it. I could not run to save my life. And something happened again. It's about the same time I started skydiving. My sister, she got me into skydiving. She also got me into doing 10Ks, which was, just regular 10Ks, whatever, 6.2 miles. And so I started running with her, and we do these in Georgia, the Peachtree. There's this annual thing downtown. Anyway, so I started doing 10Ks. In fact, even one year I flew a flag into a start of a 10K race and ran the race in Cobb County. So I really got into just doing those. But I wouldn't do anything further. Like my sister wanted to do half marathons, and I never really wanted. I was like, oh my God, I can't do 13 miles or whatever. That was just crazy. And then something clicked. It was a friend. His name's Wayne, and Wayne McComb, and him and his wife had been doing ultras, and we go out to dinner with them and stuff. And he had mentioned that, and that still didn't interest me until he said something, because I love hiking, right? I like being outdoors and all that stuff. But he mentioned that he was doing a 100K from Kennesaw Mountain to Stone Mountain. So these are two big mountains in Georgia. And I was just like, well, isn't that cool to run from top of one mountain to the top of the other in one day? I mean, you got to go through downtown Atlanta and, out to Stone Mountain. And I just thought that was just so cool. And it was more like, I thought of it as this long hike, like, man, it's like being out, running all day. Isn't that cool? Of course, I'd never done anything over a 10K. And so I made my mind to do it, and I prepared for it over like about 3 months. I didn't follow any plan. I just made my own plan. I like, well, if I've got to run 100K, I'm going to try and do, 20 or 30 miles a week. And, I just came up with my own thing. Anyway, I did it. I about died, but I loved it. And it was just so awesome to run that distance, some time to spend with him, and to just go from, early morning and then at sunset be at the top of Stone Mountain. I mean, that was something else. And then since then, I've just gotten addicted to running because it's a way to like clear my mind. I do a lot of runs without listening to anything. Then I do some runs, listen to podcasts or music or whatever. And then my dog. So I have Presley, my dog, is my running partner. And that's the other thing is I love running with her. And so I've been running with her. And she can do 25-ish miles with me when the weather's cool. So she's never done a full 30 miles, or she hasn't done anything, but she can do 25, and she's just like, whatever, this is good. So that's been enjoyable too.
Wow, that's. I think for people out there like myself that don't really run far at all, they hear. I mean, way back when I had done 10Ks when I was younger, so I understand that distance. But anything beyond that, just I was thinking, oh my gosh. But I do understand what you're saying, though, at least about the hiking part that got you interested when you heard going from one mountain to the other mountain. That hey, here's just a way to be outside, and wouldn't that be cool to start on one mountain and end up on the other mountain, and it kind of got good to you. And the fact that your dog goes that, and I love dogs and everything, but I have no clue or background on how far certain breeds can run or go or that kind of thing. I know obviously there's many herding dogs and that type of thing. That's all they do is run around and get the cattle together and stuff. But that's crazy that she goes that far.
She's a rescue dog. We think she's a Great Pyrenees American Stafford Terrier mix. She seems like she would make a great sled dog or a herding dog or whatever. I mean, she just has the energy for days, and she's just this big 50-pound just bundle of energy. But yeah, I started her when she was young. When we rescued her, she would, I was already doing ultras, and I started taking her on, 3 miles and 5 miles and 10 miles, and all of a sudden she was able to do 15 or 20, and I was like, wow. And she just loves it. She loves being out there. So she gets me out there running even on the days that I don't feel like doing it, because I can't let her down. She wants to go. She's, at the door waiting for me to take her and go running. So, yeah, she's great.
That's awesome that she helps keep you on track, basically.
Yeah.
If you're like, I'm not really feeling it today, I'm too stressed out, or I got whatever else going on, and it's like, no, we're going.
Exactly. Yeah.
Open that door so we can go.
Yeah.
It's like your personal trainer.
She is. Yeah, she's awesome. So but I've been doing it, I think 5-6 years now, something like that. And I always do that same Kennesaw Mountain to Stone Mountain. I do that every year. And then I'll sprinkle in maybe 1 or 2 50Ks, or there's one up at Cloudland Canyon I was doing for a while. But I'm not all about the races. I love that one from Kennesaw Mountain for Stone Mountain, like I talked about. But I'm just as happy running out my door and running for 30 miles, going out 15 miles, coming back with Presley, and just on my own as much as I am being in a race. I just love being out there and my own thoughts or podcast or whatever. So.
Yeah, there was a period of time when I was going to the track, not running what you're running, but I was I used to call it my old man exercise, and people were kind of surprised that I never had any music with me, being the music nut that I am. I said, "Don't you run with?" I said, "I used to a long time ago. I used to always have music with me, but in those later years, I was just out there, kind of clearing my head and just I just enjoyed, smelling what was around me, and I was around trees and all that kind of thing, and." So I found I didn't really need it. But if you're going the distance that you're going, I can understand why sometimes you're thinking, I want to have a podcast, or I want to have something just gonna, listen to and kind of catch up on while you're, out there pounding the pavement and pounding the trails and everything else. And have you ever experienced any kind of injuries from doing the running?
Nothing major. I mean, I've never been really injured skydiving, and I've never really been injured running. I've had a couple things, but nothing like that kept me down for more than a couple weeks or whatever. But yeah, so that's good. And the funny thing is, I don't know, whatever funny is, like, I don't stretch. I've never liked stretching, and so and I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Well, I think most people I talk to says it's a bad thing. But I haven't been injured, and I run a lot. I think the good thing is, like, I'm consistent. So it's not like I'm running 30 miles and then taking off 2 weeks and running 30 miles. I mean, I'm running lately. It's been like I'm running 3 to 8 miles a day, like every day. Like every day I'm going out and I'm running 3 to 8 miles. And so I'm doing 23 miles a week, but it's over a week, and I think it's just my body's used to it and stuff like that. And then every once in a while, I'll go do, like, once a month, I might do one of those runs, might be like a 15 or 20 miler, and I might take a day or two off after that. But, it's just consistent. I'm out there every day, running something.
And and they talk about that from for fun standpoint or for a health standpoint about, you have to have a change of behavior in terms of trying to get out there and doing whatever your exercise is, whatever you choose to do. And if you just do it once here and there, it doesn't add up. And then in your case, when you're doing it not competitively, but something more serious, yeah, you have to be having some sort of routine of doing X amount of miles, like you said, during the week. Otherwise, yeah, your body's going to kind of like not know what's going on if you take 2 weeks off and you come back and like, wait a minute, you're not 21 anymore. What are you doing to us?
Yeah, no, it's the same thing with drums too. I mean, that's I took that 15 years off, and it took me a good 2 to 3 years to like feel like I was like comfortable behind the kit again. And now I'm down here every day, but it's that same thing. Now I can feel the stuff increase, or the speed, or different things and ideas and stuff like that. And I feel like I'm pushing ahead and learning. Whereas like when I first jumped on after 15 years, I was like, oh my goodness, this is like, what? Why can't I do what I used to do? I don't know. Maybe I couldn't do it. I just thought I could.
Yeah, and with the drums being such a physical instrument too, I mean that's a part of it. And I know some of the comments I was seeing when bands came back to play live shows, they're talking about certain singers saying, man, they were out of breath after 3 songs. It's like, well, they didn't prepare themselves accordingly when the tour was coming back up. They got quite too comfortable during the pandemic of just not staying in road shape basically. And when they got out there, it's like, well, come on, people paying a lot of money to hear you singing songs. Don't be out of breath after the third one. It's just, let alone if you're the drummer.
Yeah, but there's no replay. Like you said, it's kind of hard to get into that shape without being out there doing it. So it just takes a while.
I saw this interview with David Lee Roth, and he was talking about even back though he was partying and all that kind of stuff in the heyday of Van Halen, that he was always knew that they were going to be on the road for like 9 months. So I got to keep doing all the workouts and everything he was doing. And even though people have said that his voice isn't what it is, and it's not, but physically that guy's in tremendous shape, and he's like 60 something when he was opening for Kiss 2 years ago. And he's still doing the kicks and everything. It's like, well, he takes it that seriously, knowing that it's such a toll on his body to be out there. So that you have to prepare for it like a prize fight. And I wish some of these other bands do the same thing. But you are right, especially for the singer. It is kind of hard to, stay in that level of shape. But I think it becomes more of like, well, if you know it's coming, at least for the next month, get ready for it or something. Yeah. Don't just get back out there and hope that you can just do what you did a year and a half ago.
For sure.
Yeah. And you mentioned, with Shooting Star, your skydiving business, for people out there that are watching this that aren't familiar with Mike. I'm just curious, and not to be morbid or anything, are there statistics when it comes to skydiving and people having accidents?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, USPA puts them out there, and it seems like in the US, it's somewhere around 30 deaths per year, as far as, but I mean, you're talking thousands of skydives, DZs all across the United States. I mean, and it's not, it used to be gear issues, bad gear or what have you. And sure, some that happens, but for the most part, it's someone making there's still the human factor. You're still flying a parachute at a high rate of speed, and you can get it to go faster depending on what you do by doing what they call low turn or something like that. So there's still the human factor of like making a bad decision. And unfortunately, skydiving is just one of those things you can't get away with making a bad decision like that. But yeah, there are statistics. USPA published some, but it's for your first time skydiver or whatever. It's very rare. I mean, of those, like, and I'm kind of generalizing, 30 deaths a year, something like that in the United States. I mean, of those, it might be one would have been like some student, that skydiver, or some accident that happened. Most of the time it's an experienced jumper that has hundreds to maybe thousands of jumps that just makes a bad decision. So it happens, but it's not common, per se, or it's not like, I don't know how else to phrase it. But yeah, there are statistics about that. But it's safer, and that's what they like to do. Is they like, it's safer than a lot of other things out there, than scuba diving or whatever. When you do, how much, it doesn't seem like it should be, but it is safer. It's obviously safer than driving in a car. but it's also something extra you would do. Most people have to drive in a car, but not everyone skydives. So.
Got it. Okay. And I know something else I was thinking about. I can't remember where this came up. It may have been like a family member discussion or something, but somebody was curious about, have you ever had someone who skydived who was perhaps like visually impaired, or someone that, I think it was a visually impaired thing. I think that's where the question came up. Who can they do that on their own, not do it in tandem if they're experienced after they jumped after a while?
No, I've never heard of. No, now I've taken up a blind person on a tandem skydive before, but I've never. Definitely deaf skydivers, but not blind. I don't know how you would. Yeah, no, not that I know of, but definitely deaf skydivers. Definitely, you know. I don't know what you could say, you know, paraplegics. I've definitely seen, there's definitely a lot of people that are wheelchair bound that can still skydive because they can slide in. They don't sky, you know, so definitely there's that out there for sure. That skydive on their own, or people that were, you know, fully able or whatever and got hurt, but still skydive even after they still lost, you know, use of their leg or the legs or whatever. Definitely there's that out there for sure. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I don't know where that conversation came up with. I'm pretty sure it was with a family member of mine. They said, "Oh, next time we talk to Mike, ask him." Yeah. He would know. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, all walks of life for sure. But and I've definitely seen a lot, and all ages too. I think the oldest person I took up was in their 80s, but I know there's people in their 90s and above that have gone up skydiving and stuff like that. I remember George Bush or something made a skydive when he was in his 70s or something like that. I can't remember, but yeah. Wow. And I think something I'm curious about, and I've asked some other guests about this when they've had a business as long as you have, what do you do to keep your business fresh? How do you keep innovating or keeping you relevant and staying above the competition? What do you do for Shooting Star in that regard? Wow, that's a great question. I don't know if I think about keeping it fresh other than I think there's something to it that I have to keep myself fresh, right? I think if I'm enjoying it, and if I'm doing something that I enjoy, I think that's naturally going to come out of me in the blogs that I write, in how I talk to someone on the phone, and how I answer them on an email. I definitely, you know, advertising. I have a guy, and I think we talked about that earlier a little bit, who can do my album artwork, but he does all my Shooting Star ads and stuff like that. And we always bounce ideas off each other for different ads and what we're going to focus on and stuff like that. But I think for the most part for Shooting Star, it's more about me doing stuff that I enjoy, finding products that I think are going to help skydivers, writing blogs about something going on in the industry. I think that's our biggest thing, is just, you know, making sure that we love the sport. So even though I haven't personally, you know, I have over 6,000 jumps, but I haven't personally skydived in about 5 years now. But I go to the wind tunnel. So there's a wind tunnel in Atlanta. So I'm always connecting with skydivers there. And I go in the wind tunnel. I've got 3 other guys, and we do 4-way formation skydiving in the wind tunnel. And so I still stay connected with the sport, and we have these conferences and stuff like that. But I think for me, it's just making sure that I'm still love what I'm doing, and it's automatically going to come out of that. Okay, and that makes a lot of sense. That, you know, if you're, like you said, if you're enjoying this, then every aspect of what you're doing with the business is going to kind of seep into that, basically. And if you're not enjoying it, then it's going to be like people kind of see that as well. It's like, well, why are we buying stuff from this guy? Right. Yeah. And I don't think you know, you mentioned something about staying above the competition, and that's kind of one thing that I've never gone down, is that, you know, I know we have competitors, but I don't spend my time looking at what they're doing. I've always been like, this is how we do it. And, you know, I've had those conversations with customers before. It's like, well, XYZ will get me at this price and do this. I'm like, that's fine. This is what we give you. This is what we can sell it to you for. And, you know, this is how we can support you. But I'm okay if you want to go over to XYZ, that's fine. Or if you want to be with us, we think of our customers as our family. This is a one big Shooting Star family. And then once you become, you know, a customer Shooting Star, you're a customer for life. And we think of you as family members. And because we're answering emails at who knows, or texts at, you know, all times of the night about something they bought or confused about. And so it's more personal relationship. I mean, we run, it's considered a large business for skydiving, but it's not like, we're not Amazon or anything like that. We're still, you know, a smallish business. And I don't think of like, you know, needing to top my competitors. I just need to do our thing and do what we do and do it well. So.
I like that, because that reminds me, even though I'm not doing, you know, a full-blown business like you are, but in terms of doing Eclectic Arts, I just stay in my lane for the most part, knowing what I want to do and how I'm my worst critic. So I know when I don't like something and when I need to change it and fix it. I don't need to know what this person over here is doing with their channel. I already know that I need to fix it, or how I did an interview, or you know, any of these kind of things. So it's interesting that we kind of share that mentality.
Yeah, and it that came over to this album, because at first I was doubting myself as like, man, you know, there's 20 million drummers that are better than me. There's tons of better songwriters. There's all this stuff, right? But I'm like, it took me a little bit, not long, you know, with internal conflict of like, what are you doing? What is this? What are you putting out there? Is this some like, and there's a record label in Seattle that I love the name. It's called Obscure and Terrible. And I feel like that's me. That I would love to be on that record label, but it's like just for the name itself, because I feel like when I finally came at peace of like the music that I'm making now, what I'm writing, what I'm recording, I'm like, this is me. This is who I am. And I can stand listening to it. So I'm hoping some other people will too. But I think that came to like, stop comparing yourself to what else is out there. This is who you are. This is original music. Do your thing. And yeah, like you said, stay in your lane and do the best of what you love to do.
I think it's a valuable lesson. I know, God, this was, I want to say in 2000, I was performing with a group of people. One was another staff member from my school, one was a student from my school, and one was like someone in between that age, for a benefit. They were trying to raise money to create this art center, and we did the whole heavy metal. I was in the black metal at that time, so we did corpse paint, the whole 9 yards. And we had people singing folk songs, and like it was like a variety show, like a talent show or whatever. But we looked so odd. And I do remember backstage that our drummer, who was like 50 something at the time, saying that she was getting nervous because she didn't know like how to act. And I was like, well, do you believe in the song we're doing? I said, oh yeah, I love the song. Do you like doing your drum parts? Yeah, I love doing my drum. Well, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to go forward, do what we do best, and then people react whichever way they're going to react to it. And then that really calmed her down, because she kept thinking, yeah, we're not like that guy sitting on the stool, and we're not like that dance troupe, and we're not like that. Exactly, we're doing our thing. And you have to believe in it. But it is hard. I mean, it's easy to say, but it's also the same thing again. When you try anything new, there's going to be people that are going to be looking at you kind of funny, or you're going to be doubting yourself at times. But it's like, well, no, I like what I'm doing, and for the most part, things are working well. I'm just going to fix this, this, and this, and then you keep doing it. And you figure, oh, now there's some new things to fix. But and then you start getting feedback too, and if people start liking it, they're tuning in. You know, in this virtual case, people start supporting the channel and making donations and all these kind of things, which is wonderful, because I never in a million years thought that would happen. You know, doing the Alice tour, we're talking to you over a year ago, that you know, someone would want to, you know, tip me anything for doing this. So when I get those little emails like from PayPal or what have you, and I'm like, somebody actually wanted to tip me? Is this a mistake or something? And I start looking at it, Yeah, and then you see the little notes that they write on it. And well, this is awesome that this happened, and it just kind of fueled me that much more to keep doing it the way I'm doing it, because it's resonating with somebody. And just like you're saying, your music's feeling good to you with this album, and it's probably going to resonate with some other people out there, whether they know you or not. I'm sure, like for myself and other people that know you, we're really anxious to hear this whole thing, particularly on vinyl. But someone who's watching this right now who doesn't know you is like, no, I like this guy. I think another thing too that people don't put enough stock in is also how you come across as a person and your business. So how you go about things. So if they like this guy, who's Mike Gruwell, and they say, well, I really like his personality. He talked about his album coming out, and now I'm going to look at his skydiving website for Shooting Star and see what that's about. That's in the link below, folks, here in the video description, so you can see all of Mike's things. Then you're kind of like, it really helps unintentionally sell what you're doing. So same thing for me. If people didn't like how I did my interviews, they wouldn't tune in again. They'd be like, that guy's a jerk. I don't like him. Or he talks too much. He keeps interrupting people. I know what I don't like in interviews. So it's like, it does. Again, how you are as a person makes a big deal with whether people want to check out your product or not.
No, that's that just struck a chord with me. Is that when I was starting to get more serious about taking my drum to the next level, I started searching out like just someone that I wanted to learn from, and there's on Instagram or whatever, looking at all these different drum instructors and teachers and stuff like that, and there's a few out there that are just incredible. You're just like, oh my goodness, but then you'd hear them speak and you'd be like, you're kind of like a little full of yourself, or you're just coming across like I should already know this type of thing. But then I fell in love with this one instructor that just like he's just down to earth, and that was the biggest thing, and that's what sold me. I mean, that's someone I can relate to. I don't know if this other site might have more lessons and stuff like that, but this guy I feel good learning from, and feel like I can, get something out of it. And I'm going to make it my own anyway. But it's definitely someone's personality, how they come across, that resonates with me entirely on people I want to learn from or work with or what have you, or talk to.
Yeah, for sure. And I've talked with many guests that said I'm a big energy person. So when I'm talking to somebody, I kind of pick up on their vibe and their energy. And some people, I immediately gravitate towards them because of how they come across, and I want to do more things with them and invite them back for things such as yourself. And then some people, quite honestly, I've had, kind of one and dones, because, and it was nothing to do with them as a person per se, but we just weren't clicking. And I can kind of tell. So it's like, you're a talented musician or talented actor or what have you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I would necessarily want to have you back, because this was kind of a chore for me to get through. And sorry folks out there watching this, but sometimes these interviews are not easy to do. Mike, I've known for a long period of time, so it's a little bit different, but for some of these people that I don't know from a hole in the wall, and their personality leaves something to be desired, it becomes a lot. I'm really put through my paces of like, how can I make this 30 minutes work and make them look good when they're not giving me much?
No, I don't envy that part of you, because you're stuck. I mean, not to bring all that, but you're stuck on a live broadcast or interview. I'm like, okay, I just need to get through this as best as I can. That's hard, and you make it happen.
I have some stories there for sure. I've talked about a few of them, but I wish that a lot of the pre-show conversations I've had with guests, that I had recorded those some way so that I can kind of, make a little highlight clip or something. Because some of the most interesting things have actually happened offline when I've not been actually live. And a lot of people don't realize that. And this, that with the Alice tour, guests I was asking them to come on like 30 minutes early, because that's when I was tech checking. So they wanted the guests to tech check. And again, I don't know any of this stuff. So, but then I thought about that after the fact. It's like, man, so I had somebody with me for 30 minutes roughly, and then we actually went live for 30 minutes. So it's roughly an hour that I had them. And if it's someone that's easygoing and, is inquisitive and wants to talk, that's great. That's easy to do. But in some cases, it was like, oh man, I got to sit there and try to figure out what am I going to say to them for 30 minutes before we go live. And I still remember this. And this guest was actually really good, but it was rare when I would press the button and join the studio here with the Alice folks, and the guest was already sitting there. That was very rare. Usually I was already there first, and then eventually they come on and they bring them in via the platform. But there was one time the guy was already there, and I was like, oh damn, this guy's already sitting here. And so I'm like, hey, so I'm Mark and I'm from Eclectic Arts, and we're going to go live in about 30 minutes, and how are things down and wherever they were living. And he was giving me like 2-word answers, and I'm like, oh god.
So you had 30 minutes to kind of process that, like, okay, how am I going to do this when this goes live?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, how do I figure out? So that's what I'm thinking in my brain. It's like, how do I get this guy to get comfortable, to relax, so that when we go live, he doesn't act like this.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to look good. And that, again, that's the last thing I want for any guest. I want them to look good with how things go. And luckily, he did warm up, because I finally found, through talking to him pre-show, we got onto a topic that he was very passionate about. So I'm like, oh, he's finally starting to open up. So remember, Mark, talk about this stuff right off the top, because that'll get him going. And then the rest of it will be kind of downhill after that. So it'll be somewhat easy. But for anyone out there that's wanting to do this, and I've seen some. Oh, hey, Ken, good to see you. Ken Puckett's joining us. Just recently joined us down in Houston. So fellow alumni from Lake Washington High School, another kangaroo.
Yeah. Hey, Ken.
Yeah, and Ken's joined some of the live streams for sure. Ken, we're just, I don't know, you joined a few minutes ago that we're just talking about some of these interview things and what goes into them. And as Mike's been talking about with his music and his company, about really just staying the course of what he wants to do, and not really looking over here and over here, but what's this person doing? It's like, hey, this is what I feel and what I know I want to be doing. And yes, yeah, go Kangs.
Yeah. It's funny. I think about Ken whenever I see something on Iron Maiden. For whatever reason, I equate Iron Maiden to Ken. And I watched Count Me In last night. It's a Netflix documentary about drummers. And Nico, is that how you saw it? Nico McBrain.
Yeah. Yep.
But he was on there a bunch, and I always think of Ken whenever I see Iron Maiden. But that Count Me In documentary is awesome. If any of you guys get a chance to see it, it's just released. It's just kind of a drummer's view of what they go through and stuff like that. So some good stuff. Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers, and of course they had some stuff on Charlie Watts. I mean, but they had, that's a great little, it's like an hour and a half, something like that. Netflix.
I'll have to check that out now that I have access to Netflix. I think Ken is synonymous for people that know him with Iron Maiden. So I'm sure he's not bothered by that at all. He's a huge Maiden fan. And when I think about fans, especially of that band, who's traveled to see them in different countries. I know he went to England to see them.
Yeah.
He's a huge fan, and it's kind of cool because, like in your case, in my case, I've talked about, like, when I was in high school, I didn't talk much. And so somebody like Ken could absolutely testify to that fact, that here I am talking for, an hour and 8 minutes with you. Back then, you didn't hear much of anything. Like, especially my junior and senior year, good grief. I was super quiet and just introverted and kept to myself. And I see Ken's asking, what about Sound of Metal?
Yeah, so I love that, Ken. So I watched that too. I don't know if you've seen that, Mark, but that was awesome. Me and my wife both watched that, and that hit me hard. That was a great one too. So I'd recommend that one as well. Some good stuff out there.
So what my issue is that because I've been gratefully covering so many movies, but it's rare when I get to watch something for fun.
Yeah.
Like, purely
that's right, and not have to review it.
Yeah, when there's no work attached to it. And I did that once recently. I finally caught up with Cobra Kai season 3. I finally had some time.
That's
and
funny.
that came out in January. So I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I think the next season's coming out in December. So I got to get up and get this thing out of the way. But yeah, I'll come home after working at night, and I'm like, okay, I literally have this little notebook that I keep with the movies that I have to keep track of, and the dates when the reviews are due. And I'm like, okay, so what's next? And I think, oh man, I got 3 that are due in 2 days. So I better get watching these things. Other times it becomes like, hey, like even like right now, I watched most of the stuff on my list, but I haven't written the reviews yet. And that's fine because some of the dates are until early September. so I've got some time to do them. But I really love Cobra Kai, and that's why I'm like, I can't believe it took me this long to finally see season 3. But I'm all caught up now, everybody, so I don't have to worry about spoilers or anything.
When you're reviewing like a movie or something you ever watched, do you have your laptop open? Do you write all these notes and then go back later and write the article, or how do you go about that?
Let's see. When I first started doing it, I used to actually have my phone and my notes open there, so I would just put little things in there if I needed to kind of like I wanted to remember something that I saw in that film that I want to bring up in the review. And then the more that I did these, I don't, and that becomes a problem at times. Yeah, if I watch too many things in a row, then I start getting details mixed up, or I forget things. And I can tell you this for people that are watching this right now, that I've had the pleasure of being credentialed for 5 film festivals this year, including Tribeca, which is huge. And so for those, I do it differently. I literally have a notebook like this size, a regular size one, with my pen. And as I'm watching stuff, I'm writing stuff down because there's no way I could keep track of all that. There's just no way. And then I have to go back and look and try to read my writing. So could I sit there with a laptop or a tablet? And I could, but I'm just kind of old school. It just seems kind of easier for me just to do it with pen and paper kind of a thing. And I see Ken saying that he's seen some clips from Yellowstone. Oh boy, yeah, Ken, you already know that I'm a huge fan of that show. And it's coming back on November 7th, which is a Sunday, everybody, for season 4.
I know.
And I've been trying to get some more talent from that show to come on and do an interview with me. I've had the pleasure of talking to Mo Brings Plenty and Jake Ream, who are both on the show, which was amazing to me, being such a freaking fanboy of that show. And then now I'm talking to them. Awesome. But that goes back to what Mike and I were talking about. I stayed after it because none of those things happened instantly. And in Jake's case, I can also say this, that he was the first person, maybe the second person that ever said he wanted to talk to me on the phone prior to figure this stuff out. He didn't want to do it through email or anything else. So I'm like, okay. So I actually thought when I got the message, it was like from his assistant or, a publicist or somebody like that.
Yeah.
So I called the number and it was him. It was actually him that I was talking to, recognized the voice and the accent and everything. And he couldn't have been nicer. He's such a character. And so now it does trip me out a little bit. I'm sure he doesn't think about this at all this way, but I'm like, well, I can just text him, and I have about things because he was kind enough to send me a nice gift box once we were done with the interview, which I've put on my social media and all this kind of stuff. Not to spend too much time with Yellowstone, but I do love that. I do love that show, and I highly recommend it to anybody that hasn't had a chance to watch any of it. But the creator Taylor Sheridan is creating this whole new universe basically of his own shows. So there's Yellowstone, there's going to be a prequel of Yellowstone that debuts in December, and he's got 3 other shows that aren't related to it, but they're things that he's created that are coming out. And it does trip me out being a fanboy. That would be like, for yourself, getting to interview a certain drummer that you loved as a kid or something like that, or just a musician in period or an athlete, anybody. That's one of the huge pluses of having done this virtual stuff, is every now and then I'll be sitting there waiting, offline, and then I'll see them come on here pre-show and I'll see their face. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so and so.
Heart starts button.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely times when I've been nervous doing these things, and they come on and I get a chance to talk to them. And again, in his case, he had never done a live stream, I don't think ever, as an interview. So I walked him through all that kind of stuff, and I still remember him saying, Mark, you even helped a dumb cowboy figure this stuff out. So if you can help me, then you can help anybody. And then I was explaining my background as a teacher, and he's like, oh, this is kind of making sense to me because you're so patient with me because I don't know technology and I don't know how to get this stuff. And it was fine. Everything worked out well. And he was just, he was willing to learn. There's, like we were talking about earlier. He could have been someone like, well, I'm just going to do it this way and let's hope that it works. And if it doesn't, too bad. It was like, no, nothing like that. I still am planning on sending him something back, and I won't divulge what that is yet. But,
nice. Well, we just, our family, so I hadn't watched Yellowstone at all. And whatever happened 3 weeks ago, someone said something and we binged it all the way through. In fact, we had all these our family does, with my parents and my sister and me and my wife, we have this big Marco Polo video chat thing back and forth. And once that last episode was all this back and forth about that episode, and Oh my goodness. So yeah, I went from 0 to whatever 100 in like 3 weeks and got it all in. We're like, oh wow. So when's the next one coming? But yeah, so yeah, we've been keeping track of that as well.
That's awesome. And yeah, no spoilers from us folks for those that haven't, like Ken, if you haven't had a chance to see it yet. But what Mike's talking about, the finale of season 3, you'll be like, holy crap. That's all I'll say about it. You're just like, holy crap. And if you watch the other season, you're kind of like, how can they top this? And somehow they managed to, go into deeper characterizations and new things get brought up. And that's why I love it, was that you can keep rewatching it, and rewatching it. And I discovered new things, new themes, new comparisons. Since you and your family, Mike, have watched all 3 or binged all 3 seasons, I definitely recommend seeing Hell or High Water, which is Taylor Sheridan's film that he did with Chris Pine and Jeff Bridges. Okay. And he's a really, really talented, creative person, period. So he did that before Yellowstone. So I was actually a fan of that film. It's like, well, who directed this film or who wrote it or whatever? And I started doing a little Google search, and it's like, what is this Yellowstone thing? It says TV. So he was also an actor. So I thought maybe he was in it in this. Well, he actually is in Yellowstone for a small role. But I got it from the library. I got season 1 from the library, and man, as soon as I watched that first episode, I just kept watching those discs and kept watching until I was done. I binged it, and then I was like, is there a season 2? And season 2 had aired, I think, or was getting ready to air, but it wasn't on disc yet. So I was just kind of rewatching season 1 and rewatching it. And yeah, it really is kind of like, Godfather with cowboys, kind of a mix of that whole lineage and, these kind of things. But yeah, so there's lots of stuff to watch, and lots of, again, it's just kind of crazy how when we were talking back in May of last year to where things are now for you with an album coming out in the fall, and for me doing all these live streams and all these wonderful connections I made around the world and getting a chance to interview some really just amazing people that are very inspirational to me. And it also kind of reminds me of like, hey, if you want to try something new, look what these people did, and also listen to what they said. I ask that all the time, especially of filmmakers. I always ask them, what advice would you give a new filmmaker? And a lot of things that they say really apply everywhere. It's not just for filmmaking people. So I start looking at it for myself, and it's been really, really great. So, well, Mike, it's been awesome catching up with you, sir, for an hour and 17 minutes or so. And I didn't get dropped, folks.
Hey, I know. Hey, technology is awesome.
Yeah, I think this new device is going to be permanently here.
Woohoo!
And I feel good about that. Ken, thank you for joining us, and anyone else out there, because it looks like there's a couple other people that have been joining us that are kind of hiding and watching. I don't know, Steve, are you out there? I don't know if you're watching this or watching it later, but hopefully things are good for you, as well as they can be. I know you've had some difficulties during recent days recently, unfortunately, but yeah, Mike, anytime you want to come on and talk about, especially as things get closer to the release of your album, I'd love to do that. And as you've probably heard me pre-show, but we're at the beginning of the show that I am, kicking off the fun tables again, and we've got 3 of them. Well, the 3rd one's coming. So at some point I might be bugging you with your DMs. And saying,
I'd be love to.
Hey, man,
those are always fun.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I mean, you did the one with Wade, which was a lot of fun, and then you did the one with Justin and Steve in September, and then I think Sony and maybe was Shar the other guest from Canada.
Sony,
yeah. So had been a part of a lot of good mix of people, good creative people. So I wish you every success down there in Georgia. Stay safe. Hopefully you and your family continue to prosper and do well, and we'll connect when we get a chance to reconnect again.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate you having me on, and always a joy. And now you got my mind thinking about other things to do, so you always spur me on as well. So awesome seeing you again. Great. Have a great it's almost evening down there, late afternoon, and go from there. All right, man, take care. All right, see you.